Well, hi everyone, welcome. Thank you again for making the time to join us this evening for the RAD Cohort information session. My name is Humin. I use she, her pronouns, calling from Treaty 1 territory, the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of Métis Nation, colonially known as Winnipeg. I am currently the programs lead at Youth Climate Lab, and I'm joined by my colleague Cameron here.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. But yeah, I'm Cameron. I use she, her pronouns. I am also calling in from Treaty 1 territory, colonially known as Winnipeg. And yeah, I am a program specialist with YCL. I'm super excited to be here with all of you today.
But we also want to know you folks as well, and want to get to know you and where you're joining in from. So in the chat, Cameron is going to copy and paste the prompts. If you could share who's in the room, your name, your pronouns, where you're calling in from, and which lands or communities are you connected to. And if you're not familiar with the traditional names of the places that you're calling in from, or the people who steward the land and the waters you live on, please feel free to check out the link native-land.ca to find out more. And yeah, if you could share that in the chat, that would be fabulous. Okay, while you folks are sharing where you're calling in from, I hope you are wherever time zone you are joining us from, that that you're able to ground yourself in this space. And if there's anything that we can do to help that process a little bit better, then please feel free to let us know. But for our agenda of the day, we'll be going through a couple of key things throughout this info session. On the screen, you'll see the agenda. We'll spend some time doing some intro and context setting about how you can engage throughout this session. If you have any questions about Youth Climate Lab as an organization, about the RAD program, we'll also share a little bit about what RAD Collab is. I'm sure you have seen some of that wording in our promo materials, and you might not be familiar with this, so we'll share a little bit about what that is. Also, the UN SDGs and the 2030 agenda, we'll share a little bit about that. If you have any questions around who should apply or participant information and timelines, that will also be covered. And lastly, we'll finish off with how to apply and any Q&As. If you have any questions that you'd like Cameron and I to answer, we'll take some time at the end to do that as well. Before we do dive in though, I just wanted to remind folks that we will have a Q&A session at the end, but don't feel like you have to wait until then to ask your questions. Feel free to type your question in the chat and we'll be sure to return to them at the end. And if you don't feel comfortable asking your question in the chat and you prefer to ask anonymously, please either direct message your questions to either of the YCL staff, so either myself or to Cameron. You can do that by selecting the to button, then you'll be able to decide who you're sending the message to. Just select either Cameron and myself, and you'll be able to ask your question anonymously there. And if you require auto captioning, that is available. You can turn that function on by clicking the 3 dots at the bottom of your Zoom menu and just clicking auto caption as well. Okay, and then I'll pass it off to Cameron to share a little bit about the organization.
Awesome. Thank you. Also, I'm seeing the introductions in the chat. Thank you folks so much for saying hi. It's also like, I don't know, I always think it's so cool. I don't know, like kind of the reach of sometimes these sessions, and I don't know, people in different parts of the country joining us. So yeah, very cool to see where everyone is from. But yeah, I'll talk to you folks a little bit about Youth Climate Lab. Maybe it's the first time that you folks have heard about us, or the RAD application was the first time that you've heard of us and you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds really cool, but also like, what am I signing up for and who am I going to be working with? So I'll give you a little bit of background on us. So Youth Climate Lab, also known as YCL, is a Canada-based global nonprofit organization for youth to mobilize other youth. And for youth, we define that as people like 18 to 30 years old. So really, we are trying to empower youth to create a just, climate resilient futures. So we equipped young people with the skills, financial access, and policy knowledge to take leadership within the climate movement. Kind of like overall, our vision is for young people, no matter who they are or where they're coming from, to be able to catalyze transformative climate action in their communities, as well as to the highest levels of decision making. So that's a little bit about us. If you would like to figure out more, or that kind of like piqued your interest, I tossed something in the chat there as well too. You can always check out our website. There is a lot more information about the things that we do, as well as a little bit more on like previous like RAD cohorts as well too. Yeah, little tidbits about us there. Awesome. So thank you, Suman, for changing the slide. What is RAD? You may have heard of it, and thank you so much for being here today to learn a little bit more about this really cool program that we are hosting and putting on. But yeah, so the Research Activate Deepen, also known as RAD Cohort, is Youth Climate Lab's award-winning program that supports youth across so-called Canada in exploring climate justice, radical collaboration, the 2030 agenda, which we will also go over if folks aren't familiar with, which also includes the Sustainable Development Goals, which we will also touch on in a little bit as well too. So we're all on the same page. But yeah, participants get to engage in a transformative virtual learning experience to research, activate, and deepen connections through collaborative community projects. You will also get $750 to bring an impactful project to life within your community, which is super exciting. Funding is hard to get, so it's good to have that there. But throughout the RAD cohort, you'll get to explore a couple of very cool themes. So like I mentioned before, really talking and focusing on the United Nations 2030 agenda and what the Sustainable Development Goals are and how those can show up within your communities. Definitely a lot about radical collaboration, which is fun, which we will also talk about what that means in a little bit. Multi-solving as well too. Climate justice and reconciliation and what that looks like. Community-centered project creation and partnership building, as well as creativity, design thinking, and social impact. So kind of by the end of the RAD cohort, there are a couple things that we hope that you folks will have taken away with you through the experience. And you will take away with you. But pretty much we want to increase a wide range of skills for future employment, including project design and implementation. You will also get to further develop coping skills for navigating climate emotions such as grief and anxiety. Deepen your understanding of key climate justice topics, and a few of these would include reconciliation, community-based solutions, radical collaboration, and the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, as well as my favorite part, you'll get to have made new friends as well as professional connections within climate justice and environmental spaces in so-called Canada, which I think is always a fun part of getting involved in these programs.
Yeah, and we've mentioned quite a little bit about what radical collaboration is. We've thrown this term around, and you might be thinking, what the heck are they talking about? This is a term based on a key principle that roots from design thinking, and it ultimately really speaks to the co-creation and is really inspired by the desire to learn from others and embrace diverse perspectives within and throughout the process of problem scoping, to idea generation, to solutions finding, and to innovation as well. So throughout the entire process, how are you thinking about things in a creative manner that is innovative, that sparks new connections, that sparks the connection of different topics together? That's ultimately what radical collaboration means. It also allows us to think and really work with others in ways that are open-minded, that are non-conventional, non-traditional, and again, creative and innovative. What this does is it really sparks transformative action and solutions through unusual and unexpected connections for current climate and social inequity problems within our communities. This is a screenshot of an Instagram story that we want to share. It really speaks to how we recognize that this term radical holds a lot of nuance and baggage these days in the context that it's used. But the way this Instagram user, Jose Biling, shares is that ultimately the root of the word is radical. Root of the word radical is really root. And what if rather than treating radical as some sort of outlier or extreme, it is perhaps a reminder of how we root ourselves, reconnecting the root of what is core, nourishing, and foundational in our work. Our radical selves affecting the fundamental nature of our work and the world we create by how we form the root of fundamental change. I really love how that speaks to the collaboration, the community building that is centered, and how we can think about things outside of the box, outside of the social norms, outside of business as usual, and what are some creative and innovative solutions that we can come up with within community and with folks that you might not normally collaborate with either. As an organization, Youth Climate Lab, we really try to implement and center radical collaboration through 6 main principles, and they are youth first, creative, inclusive, disruptive, catalytic, and equitable. And these principles are really embedded into the RAD cohort and the community that we'll be fostering together collectively.
Awesome. Thank you, Suman. Also, I noticed that we had a couple folks joining us as well too. I tossed it in the chat, but I thought I'd just like vocalize it as well. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, as well as like we are recording right now. So if you like want to see the first few minutes, just let us know. There's going to be a recording, as well as if you do have any questions. This is like a very like casual, informal space. So feel free to just like raise your hand, or you can just toss it in the chat. But there is like a Q&A session at the end too, if you'd like to wait till there. But yeah, just wanted to voice that again, but we'll get back to business. Oh my gosh, the Sustainable Development Goals. So kind of one of the main pillars of this program. And if you are not familiar with the 2030 Agenda or the SDGs, that is totally okay. We will be kind of going through that within the program, and you'll get a fun little introduction right now. But yeah, so the 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development Goals is defined to be a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity, as well as to address kind of the interconnected crises facing the world today. So the 2030 Agenda has been adopted by all of the United Nations member countries and is a universal commitment to advancing prosperity and well-being of all people by protecting the planet as well as reducing inequalities. So kind of at the heart of the 2030 Agenda are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which we have been referencing a lot, and 169 targets with the goal of achieving them by 2030. So in 2015, the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon introduced the Sustainable Development Goals by describing the need for what he called transformative development. It was a call for action for the world to approach kind of global patterns holistically by tackling the ways in which different agendas overlap and amplify each other. So everybody needs to be involved with kind of implementing these goals. So all stakeholders are needed to achieve the SDGs by 2030. So that includes governments, civil society, businesses, and youth, which is where you get to come in, which is really fun. But the RAD cohort will be exploring the SDGs and will center the 2030 Agenda to ensure that young people from coast to coast to coast have access to the tools, resources, opportunities, and knowledge needed to develop and implement solutions needed to achieve the 2030 Agenda and make sure that no one is left behind. So you can kind of see on the screen here as well, we have all of them too. If you're unfamiliar, these are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. You can also look them up as well too, and there are like more in-depth descriptions of them, but that is just a quick overview of them there for if there are any folks who are unfamiliar. Does that feel good? Awesome. Again, any questions, let us know. But now we get to go on to who should apply. So we are kind of looking for there are a few like eligibility requirements for folks who would like to be part of RAD. So you need to be 18 to 30 years old at the time of application. That's just because this is like a youth-centered kind of program. And we need to make sure that, young people in there, and then 18 to 30 is just how that is kind of defined. You need to be a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or have been granted refugee status in so-called Canada. You also must be living or based in so-called Canada throughout the program duration as well. And you also have to be excited about doing a project in your community in so-called Canada as well. So we are looking for 30 youth to get started and continue growing their climate journey. You should apply if you're passionate about making a difference in your community, seeking community and skills to help cope with climate change and related emotions. So like I mentioned, talking a lot about like eco grief and eco anxiety, but also like climate joy as well too, which is a fun one that I don't think gets mentioned as much. Yeah, you should also apply if you're looking to develop new skills or build on current ones, and you're looking to expand your personal and professional networks as well.
Okay, and thank you, Cam, for going over those so thoroughly. To share a little bit more about the program itself, during the learning journey, you'll have access to a bunch of different learning sessions, to different conversations, to panels, but just to kind of boil it all down, throughout this entire learning journey, you'll explore so many different project ideas and work to develop a feasible scope and a budget for your project. And you'll have support throughout the entire process of developing a budget, developing a project idea. You'll get mentorship support. You'll have the Youth Climate Lab team to support you as well. So you won't be alone in doing any of this by yourself. Topics, again, will include the UN SDGs, the climate justice, project development, arts-based practices, and community engagement. And these topics will really be explored through a wide range of learning opportunities, including synchronous and asynchronous sessions that are called learning modules, peer-to-peer circles where you have an opportunity to connect with your fellow cohort members and get to chat with them, get to learn from them, get to bond and be able to partake in some fun activities to grow together as a cohort. And also national webinars will be available to not only ensure that the folks in the cohort get access to some of the content and the program design that we'll be hosting, but also the broader audience can have access to that kind of information as well. And also an opportunity to showcase some of your work at the end of the program. Okay. Let's keep moving along. Additionally, what supports will you receive as a participant? As Cam mentioned earlier, you will have up to $750 microgrant to implement your community project. And you'll also have mentorship from Youth Climate staff, as well as mentors throughout the entire cohort experience. And they'll be able to help you and support you in developing your project idea, ensure it meets your goals while also being feasible and rooted in community and equity. We have a really exciting slate of mentors who are really excited to bring onto this program. They are advocates, they're organizers, they're leaders really committed to supporting the growth and capacity building of young people. They really hold such diverse range and just portfolios of knowledge and so much experience in working with communities, practicing equity-centered collaboration, and are really excited to prompt insightful questions and encourage participants to really think critically about their projects as well. They work nationally, globally, within communities on the front lines as well. So I really hope that this is a really neat opportunity for folks to connect with really great folks who are working on a lot of community-led projects already. And you'll also have access to various personal development and self-reflection practices as well. We'll introduce how you can get involved in building on your skills, how you can use art in developing some of those skills as well. And lastly, you'll largely be a part of a community of really care, of collaboration and well-being, both during and after the program. And we have an extensive YCL alumni network who are really excited about always supporting and amplifying the work that we do. And we really do try our best as an organization to ensure that the work that the alumni are doing are amplified through our networks, and that there are opportunities and collaborations happening with past participants of our programs as well.
All right, cool. So now that you folks are hopefully feeling a little more familiar with things, and kind of like what is at the heart of the program, maybe we'll go into a few more like logistical things and breaking down what kind of, yeah, like RAD is going to look like from month to month. So this is where we are right now. Early July to mid-August is recruitment time and application time. So yeah, that's where we are right now. Orientation and context building is going to be mid-August to mid-September. So we are going to be starting the program, I think, mid-August. I believe the date is around August 15th. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, August 15th-ish. Your project design and working on your community project is going to be from mid-September to early November. The fun part, project implementation, actually like creating and putting it out into the world, is going to be early November to mid-January. Project wrap-up and celebrations is going to be February to early March. And this is a 7-month program. So throughout these 7 months, oh my gosh, I can't speak today. Throughout these 7 months, you will have access to mentors, YCL staff, and program modules to support you and your learning journey, as well as support your project development and implementation as well too. So we are going to help you with, yeah, every step throughout the way. You will have support. Okay, so yeah, on to actually applying. So the first things that you can do are to take a read through. We have a participant guide for you folks to go through if you have any questions. They're like Q&As and just like another overview as well too, as well as the application form, which I can toss in the chat here for you. Hopefully this works with it. Give me 1 second. Or Simon, if you want to toss it in there, that would be great with the links. Thank you. So the application questions can also be accessed through the participant guide. So you don't have to worry about kind of like starting it and like saving it and things like that. But make sure you save your answers on a separate document, and then you can fill out the application when you're ready to submit. So yeah, like I mentioned, you don't have to like go straight into the application and be bombarded with questions that you haven't gotten the chance to think about yet. But yeah, when you're ready to submit, just the heads up, you will not be able to like save and like return to your work. So yeah, would just recommend putting it onto like a separate document and then like copy and pasting what you have to say for the questions there. As well as if you are hesitant about some of the expectations, but you're like, this sounds really cool and like I really want to be involved in it. Or if you have any like questions or about the program in general, please feel free to reach out to our programs manager as well. I can drop her email in the chat here. And I believe this also should be in the application guide as well too. So if you lose that email, it should be available with one of those links there for you too.
Okay, well, thanks folks for being there to listen to our whole spiel about the program, who should apply, what you can expect from the program as well. We can take some questions right now, but before we do that, I see that Haley has already put a question in the chat earlier. So she asked, do you need to already have an idea on what you can do in your community before applying to the program? No, you do not. It's great if you already have an idea and you can come in with some with clear intentions of what you're hoping to achieve and different goals you might have, but that is not the expectation. Our goal is to make this program as accessible as possible so that you can have support throughout the entire process of ideation, project development, and implementation. Go ahead with your question there, Haley.
Hi. Excuse my voice, I'm a little sick today. My question is, so I already work in the climate change space, but I'm very baseline to climate change because I just started this work, I want to say like almost 3 months ago. And so would I still be able to apply even while I'm already working in this sort of space?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Welcome to the climate space. I hope you've been having a good time here. Glad to have you here as well. And this program isn't just around climate change. It's really about how do we work together? How do we bring in the SDGs into all the conversations that we're having? So it will not just be around climate space, nor is it for anyone who is looking to make an entry. It is a great opportunity for folks who are looking to make that entry, that this is an accessible option pathway into doing that. But if anything, Haley, I think you'll bring a lot of really great insights from your work already within the climate space. And I assure you that you'll learn lots more from the different kinds of conversations that we'll be having and from the other participants as well, who might not be as well versed in climate work. So ultimately, yes, you should still apply if you're interested. Anyone else have any questions? I see in the chat, Bethany asks, what time will the synchronous meetings be hosted at, and what will happen when we're not able to make it to one? So if once you are selected onto the cohort, the participant package will be delivered to you, and it will get you to fill out your availability. So all of that will be decided collectively because we recognize that we have participants who are likely going to be joining from coast to coast to coast. A time that works for all 3 coasts will have to be decided on, and that process is going to be decided as a group. So you'll have an opportunity to share your availability. And I believe all the sessions will be recorded as well. The goal is half of the modules are going to be synchronous and half are going to be asynchronous. So the asynchronous ones you can already watch on your own time. Of course, we want to ensure that and encourage that you attend as many sessions as possible, but we also recognize that that's not always possible. But a recording will absolutely be available, and the Youth Climate Lab staff will be available to support you if you had any additional questions from the session that you might have missed as well. Any other questions? And we're actually going to stop the recording here at this point.